work order with confidence. I'm Linda Hammond, and you're watching Sparking Discovery, which is about remaining relevant, which we believe is done by exposing ourselves to thought leaders in their fields. This is where we lean into their experience and gather as much as we can to help us make the right decisions or make the decision right. This evening, I was hoping to speak to Frank Hun from Netpresenter, the software provider that we sell into the African market. But unfortunately, he had to cancel at the last minute. Some urgent matter came up. So Charles Nightingale has agreed to stand in for him this evening. So he is my colleague and he is the company's technical genius. So a little bit about Charles. He's been with us since 2004. Prior to that, he was involved with the transformation of telecom property management to a commercial company. His discipline and remit was to set up a 24/7 call center managing hundreds of calls per day. He is an avid Microsoft fan, and his ability to integrate various applications into a workable workplace solution is phenomenal. This then the reason we are technically advanced to talk to us, and we can be bringing you the video that we are. So thanks for standing in for Frank at short notice, Charles, and welcome this evening.
Thanks, Linda. It's a pleasure to be with our viewers this evening. I'm going to enjoy talking about Netpresenter, and please, if you've got any questions as we're discussing it, please ask them. This is being broadcast live, so we'll be able to engage with you on that as well. If you watch it later on demand, please be free to leave comments as well, and we will get back and respond to all comments on all our videos. So thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Charles. I think really what I'd like us to share with our viewers is talk to us do communication. We do brand engagement, we do branding, we do market reach. So we do the whole basket of issues around how do you speak to people and how do you reach them, whether they're internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. We look at all of those. My particular passion is, of course, internal communication, and it's rubbed off on everybody in this organization. And so what I'd like you to share with us this evening, Charles, if you could, is just why did Talk to Us pursue a partnership with Netpresenter?
Okay, so Talk to Us for a long time was sourcing the market and trying to find things or a tool that could assist the organization to help its customers to be able to broadcast messages within the organization. So typically, one of the trouble points within an organization typically would be, we've got a lot of information to share, we've got a lot of communications that need to go out into the organization, but typically what we find happening is that we rely on email, is what the customer says, and then a lot of people put rules into place on the email. It goes into a junk box or into a folder that never gets seen. And what happens is that there's a breakdown in communication because the organizations are not getting the information that they need. So Talk to Us scoured the market, like I said earlier, trying to find a tool that would be able to assist us. So the Netpresenter tool gives many capabilities into the hands of our customers to allow them to be able to communicate powerfully and effectively within their organization without there being a dependency on any other system in the organization. So typically you would be able to send out messaging that could pop up on the screen, typically like an email can, a little toast pop-up would come up. You could then read the message. You could put messaging out on screensavers, on wallpapers, on the Windows 10 lock screen. So there's many tools and capabilities that allow you to prepare a message and send it out. So those are not the only tools. You've also got many other capabilities, and I'm sure we'll get into those discussions as we go on. But the key thing that we needed a tool that we could recommend to our clients to assist them to be that much more effective in their internal communication endeavors.
Thanks for that. And one of the things that we obviously wanted to do is, people understand King 4, I think it is now, and the fact that you have to be able to prove that you have communicated with your internal stakeholders and that you are getting the readership that's required. And so there are measurements in there as well. There's also, there's a benefit to Netpresenter having been around for such a long time. So they have grown up with old technology, and they are still going, and perhaps that longevity there's of benefit to a lot of our customers. Perhaps you can enlighten us, Charles.
Okay, so Netpresenter started developing their product way back when we still had probably 1G and then 2G. So Netpresenter has a very clear understanding and appreciation for the ability to make sure that they use minimal bandwidth in their tool to be able to allow organizations to send messaging out across devices in the organization. So the Netpresenter tool is very much a bandwidth friendly tool that allows you then through the application of accessing the back end of the Netpresenter tool via your browser. So typically you would have Netpresenter administrators that would then prepare content. It can go through a moderation hoop if you need to, where it would be approved by a moderator and then published. So junior people could be loading this content. And then this content, once it's pushed, the publish button is pushed, it can send out messaging to a laptop, to a desktop, to a tablet, to a smartphone, to a digital signing system within the organization. So any tools that you've got or any screens that you've got in your organization, you will be able to use this tool to send messaging out onto those screens to get people's attention. So Netpresenter developed a tool called Amber Alert that is used in the Netherlands, and my understanding is it's going beyond the Netherlands down to the rest of Europe as well, where they have the capability to, at a click of a button, to communicate messaging to all screens in the country and to all smartphones in the country, to be able to publish an Amber Alert if there's a missing child or some other catastrophe where they need to communicate with the population. So Netpresenter has been running for over 20 years now and has this capability that has been refined over the years that can be used by an organization to be that much more effective in their internal communication endeavors.
But despite that, it's also remained modern and right up there with the other products as well, which is really enviable if you look at it from that point of view. I think that there are a number of issues from an internal communication point of view that an internal communicator is looking for. And those are, what are the consumption preferences of the audience? How does the audience respond back? Can they respond back? And what are the different tools that are available to you? Could you maybe expand a bit about those?
Okay, so like I was saying earlier, the internal communicator would have a list of messaging that they would need to send out over a period of time. That messaging can be in the form of short, sharp messaging with attractive imagery and bylines and call to actions that allow you then to actually send out these messages in various different formats. So like I was saying earlier, you can manage all the screensavers across your organization from a single point through the internal communication administrator that would then access the back end of the Netpresenter tool and load up these different screensavers. So you can have many different screensavers running at once across the organization that can be timed and programmed, can include video content, can include a hyperlink to take people through to a intranet site or a SharePoint server where there would be a lot more information to be consumed. So it's kind of like a forerunner that draws people's attention to a particular message, but it doesn't necessarily have to contain the whole message, or it can. So typically you might use a screensaver to get someone's attention, or the lock screen of a device, or the wallpaper, and then they would go out and consume this information on another platform within the organization. So you've got the ability to go across the whole organization on all different screen sizes and different formats from one central point to get people to read this different content. So you might, for example, have short, sharp messaging, a couple of paragraphs that you want to send out as well. That would then be published through to the news app on your mobile device of your users, which also can have the capability to have reverse billing from a data usage point of view, where that consumption of data can be then billed back to the organization rather than against the device or the data plan of that particular user's device. That will then allow you to actually build this library of news and information that typically people would scroll through when they've got a moment of time, when they're consuming all the other news and activities as well that are not work related. And it doesn't feel that invasive where people are now being overloaded with organizational information, and that's why they start putting rules in email, for example. So you're really wanting to give people the ability to consume that content on whatever device they would want to, at whatever time they would want to, in their own convenience. But because you've got it structured and planned and implemented very well through a formal change management adoption program, you're making sure that you are allowing people to see this content at multiple places where they can consume it in their own time and preferences. So like I was saying earlier as well, you've got the capability to use Netpresenter to manage a digital signage capability in your organization. So if you've got flat screen TVs in reception areas, in canteens, in office areas, doesn't matter where they are, you would be able to group and segment those TVs with a distribution list that allows you to send internally focused information for those screens that are inside the offices and not visible to the public. And then you've also got public-facing screens that you can then send public messaging out onto those screens in your reception areas to your clients and visitors as well. So that then also allows you to then get that information across that much more powerfully and effectively while people are just walking around the office. So at the same time, all the screens in your office on your open plan areas, for example, each screen becomes a billboard in its own right with the messaging that's going out. Another thing that Netpresenter comes with is the ability to manage emergency communication activities, or alerts. So if you need to basically respond as a first responder to a fire, for example, or a hazardous situation in your offices, you can pre-prepare a list of messaging that can be activated via people's mobile phones, and you can select who those people would be that would be able to notify or activate that message, and then you would be notifying the distribution list that message is associated with. What else?
It also has a system whereby they can notify back that they're safe or that they need help, which is really great, and it can be used by your teams who actually control and say, well, how many people are safe and how many aren't. You can actually have a look and see online in real time who's safe and who isn't. I think the other thing that has always been quite interesting for me is the fact that once you've acquired the software, it's actually quite easy to implement, except that if you have a robust communication methodology and practice and process, just implementing the product is not too difficult. And perhaps you just want to tell us how that works. Is it just an app on a phone, or how does that actually, how do you implement it?
So in essence, the place that you would need to start in terms of your decision making would be where you want to host the Netpresenter app. Netpresenter can be hosted within your data center, inside your firewall if you would like to do that. It can be hosted on a public cloud infrastructure or private cloud infrastructure that you manage exclusively for your organization. So typically, once you've made that decision, all you would really need to do is to configure the MSI file that would be then taken by your IT department, that would then push out this MSI file in the form of a group policy or something similar, and install that app across the organization on all devices, or all PCs rather. So that once that's done, then there's a handshake that takes place between the app installed on the person's machine and the server, and then your list populates of everyone that's available to be targeted. So you would be able to use your LDAP directory or your Active Directory that would allow you then to do a roll call, so to speak, to make sure that the app has been successfully installed on all devices. And then you would be able to then, as the administrator, start targeting those people with messaging. The second thing then would be able to set up the mobile devices. So the mobile devices is that you would then take the app and make it available in your company app store, or to be available in the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store, where you would then be able to go download the app. You would go through a login process where you would have made available a username and password for people to log in with. Alternatively, you can synchronize it with a single sign-on capability where it would then validate against their organizational credentials, and then they would be able to receive content on that mobile device. So it's secure from that point of view that not just anybody can download the app and receive your organizational content. They would need to log on and be validated through a single sign-on process or a manual process, depending on how far you want to go. So typically, once that's done, the system is really up and available to use, and is really about training and educating the users of how to use it. And then secondly, like you were saying earlier, you need to go through this adoption process where you need to evaluate what you're currently using to understand what Netpresenter can replace and be used in place of those type of tools, and then you would be able to formally kickstart the project.
Now, in talking about that, one of the things communicators have, and we've always had it in the past, is whenever you produce content and it gets transferred from one platform to another, it often errors are made, or it loses some of it because it doesn't fit into a certain format that you want. So that concept of taking information and not just having one source with multiple ways of accessing it has always been a problem for us. We've always had to take it and rework it and put it into different mechanisms to disseminate the information and then to let people consume it. Now, I know that Netpresenter has got integration to multiple platforms via a REST API, and I think it's quite important that you can maybe just explain to us what are all those things that they integrate into, and how easy would it be to integrate if somebody has, for instance, if they use a BI tool, or if they use some kind of mechanism to look at the boardrooms on their tables, etc. How easy is it, and is it possible?
Yeah. So it is very much possible. So Netpresenter, like Linda was saying, does have a REST API capability that will allow you then to integrate Netpresenter into any other system that can receive an API or has an API of its own. So typically what that will allow you to do is it will allow you to set up integrations, for example, in SharePoint and Netpresenter. So typically the integration would work as follows, where you now publish a news article onto SharePoint. You want to publish it at the same time onto the Netpresenter platform. So typically the integration would include a checkbox that you would tick in SharePoint that would then push that information through into Netpresenter as well, and the integration that is written would basically manage all the rules around how you would want that particular messaging to work. So typically you can send messaging from SharePoint to Netpresenter and not having to have to go and capture it in SharePoint and in Netpresenter. Secondly, you can also integrate it with any other tool. So, example, Microsoft Teams, for example, that's the latest integration that's just been completed and made available by Netpresenter. So you can basically publish messaging from Netpresenter directly into Teams as well. So the rules around how you would want that to work and what team you would want it to go in and how you would manage that would be a project in its own right, a small project to basically manage the integration of how you would want that to work and what are your rules around how you would want that to work. So that would basically then allow you then to use one interface as a internal communications practitioner in an organization to manage all your content via one platform, being the Netpresenter tool or the app, and that would allow you then to push information into all these other tools. So Microsoft Power BI, like Linda was touched on earlier as well, all your performance reports and your scheduling, your league tables that you might be putting out into the organization can be published directly from Power BI into the Netpresenter tool as well. And then people are receiving all this content in one place, and they're not becoming overwhelmed by things popping up all the time while they're working, because they would then consume this content through the news app, or via the screensavers that would pop up, or the digital signage that's happening. So wherever you would want to display content and reports that you're putting together in other tools, you can do that. You can bring in news feeds from CNN or News 24 or BBC as well, and reflect some news from that side in to the organization. You can also make your Facebook and Twitter and Instagram accounts and LinkedIn, from a corporate perspective, your corporate accounts, you can make them visible as well into Netpresenter without having to have to open up all these tools on your platform, on your network. So in essence, you're basically giving people the capability to see what's being published on these social channels and to engage with it and understand it, but not necessarily having to have to open up all these platforms onto your network to allow that to work. So it's ring-fenced in its own right and brings this information across. So if you use Google's Data Studio, for example, and you're wanting to bring certain reports from there into Netpresenter, you can do that as well. So any tool that's got an API capability and an interface, you can integrate with Netpresenter to be able to share that information in this Netpresenter app.
So it appears as though Netpresenter's model is to sort of say, let's integrate with everything out there instead of trying to rebuild everything. And I think that has always been a big difference for us when we were looking for a product, is we wanted a product which could basically integrate with most things and just give us one place where people can consume the information, but they understand where it lives and how to get to it everywhere. And so it's a bit like, what was my analogy? It's like Apple, who try to ring fence everything, and Android, who say, well, we'll just interface with everything else. I think, is that a proper way of putting it? Or
Yeah, so they're kind of like very open, and they're not wanting to basically build a tool to replace tools that you're currently using. So as an example, that might be some of our competitors, for example, make available a newsletter capability inside their tool, or a survey tool. So typically, someone like SurveyMonkey is tried and tested, and a very powerful tool, and a lot of organizations use either the unlicensed brand or the branded licensed one. And that allows you then to basically use that functionality and that capability and that skill set that comes with a SurveyMonkey, as opposed to Netpresenter saying, we're going to build a SurveyMonkey type tool and compete with SurveyMonkey. So you can still use Netpresenter to promote that and to push people to the survey, but the survey mechanisms and databases don't have to be managed within Netpresenter. I think that's one of the key differences between how Netpresenter has chosen to develop the app as opposed to the way some of our competitors were trying to put everything into their app and exclude other activities. So what Linda was trying to say earlier is that the Netpresenter is kind of like the Android model, where they open and embrace other technologies and tools, rather than trying to make sure that their tool can do everything at the expense of other tools that you might already have in your organization that you're using and paying for. So if you want to basically kick the tires, so to speak, and try this tool out and see how it works and functions, we do have the capability to set up a demo for you. You can put a comment in the comments down below, or you can send us a contact form on our website, where you can request us to have a separate online meeting with you, where we can go through in detail what the tool is all about and unpack it for you and answer your questions specifically in your context. And that will allow you then to understand more fully how it works. And then, depending on the size of your organization and what you're wanting to do, there's two avenues that you can go. We offer a paid trial, where you can pay for a trial for a period of time to actually use it and understand how it works, and then with the view to progressing into a longer commitment. Or there might be an opportunity as well for us to explore a free demo capability, where we would be able to allow you to use the tool for 30 days, for example, to actually get hands-on experience on how this tool actually works and functions.
Okay, well, that's been a mouthful, and it's been a lot to take in, I'm sure. So what we will do is, in the comments below, we'll post some links for you so that you can go and have a look at the product. And there's also some cool newsletters of the latest things that they're bringing out, which we'll also post for you. But on that note, I'd like to thank you, Charles, for your participation at the last minute, which I appreciate. Is there a final word from your side?
No, that's an absolute pleasure. I appreciate the giving the opportunity to speak to you guys about Netpresenter. But I think a personal one-on-one would be a more valuable session as well. If you would be interested in it? So please don't hesitate to call on us, and I'll be happy to set up such a session and take it through in detail and actually demo the tool to you to show you how it works and functions. So this is kind of like giving you a flavor and a taste, and you can cherry pick the parts of the system that you would want to use and license that accordingly, and then you can basically roll it on from year to year as you get more and more involved in it, and you can include more and more capabilities that the tool offers. But it's been a pleasure, Linda, and thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Charles. So if you found this useful, please hit the like button, subscribe, follow, share, and more importantly, talk to us. You can complete our book a consultation form on the contact page of our website. And we would just like to thank you for your time, and good night.